Hello everyone, Luke here. Super Mario Kart is one of the most revolutionary video games of all time. It revolutionized the kart racing genre in ways never before seen. And while the game was revolutionary, it was far from perfect. So let's go to this game's sequel, which it still isn't perfect, but it's a much better game than the original. So let's talk about Mario Kart 64 and how it revolutionized 3D racing. Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo was a good game, but it really hasn't aged well. The computer players cheat whenever they want, and all the tracks feel the same, and there's a lot of issues like that. But the Mario Kart franchise still had a lot of potential. And with Nintendo's next main system, the Nintendo 64, that console had 4 controller ports right from the start. Making a Mario Kart for the system, it just made sense. So in 1996, Nintendo started working on the next installment in the Mario Kart franchise. Now, originally the game was going to be called Mario Kart R, but on the Sega Saturn, Sega was working on a game called Sonic R, so Nintendo just decided to name the game 64. 64 being after the console's name and 1/3 of the library. They got rid of the super part of the name, which makes more sense. Having the name be Super Mario Kart 64 is just a mouthful, and I feel like Super to be the name of the Super Nintendo Mario Kart game makes sense, so dropping the Super from the title just fits. Mario Kart 64 was released in Japan on December 14, 1996, North America February 10, 1997, and June 1997 everywhere else. This is considered one of the best Mario Kart games of all time, so let's play Mario Kart 64 on the Nintendo 64. We boot up the game to this Nintendo golden logo spinning and the title screen. You hear Mario scream "Welcome to Mario Kart," which is just so iconic, and the menu theme is one of the best in the series, I'll give it that. It's just so charming. Let's head into the Grand Prix mode. We have character selection screen. We have 8 characters, but we have some new faces this time around. Mario, Luigi, Peach, Toad, Bowser, and Yoshi return from Super Mario Kart. And we have 2 new characters, Wario and DK. Both of these characters make a lot of sense for Mario Kart. The 2 characters removed were Koopa Troopa and Donkey Kong Jr. Koopa Troopa was never a fan favorite. He'll return as a character soon, so his loss doesn't really impact my life all too much. DK Jr. is pretty much just a worse Donkey Kong. DK Jr. has never returned in a mainline Mario Kart ever since. But really nothing is missing because standard DK is pretty much just the same character. Let's jump into the racing mode, and there's something different from Super Mario Kart. Everything here is unlocked from the start, including Rainbow Road. Every track, every character is unlocked from the start, which has its pros and cons. Pros being everything is unlocked from the start, so you can play anything right away, which is great if you bought the game just to play with friends. Con, it means that it will take less time to get bored of everything. Unlocking things in Mario Kart is just fun. It gives people an incentive to play. What's the point of playing Mario Kart single player if there's nothing to unlock? For Mario Kart 64 being the first Mario Kart you can play with up to 4 people, I understand why they would have basically everything unlocked from the go, but it leaves someone like me who is too embarrassed to say, you guys want to play Mario Kart 64 anytime I have friends over. It just leaves someone like me kind of hanging. But either way, this is Mario Kart. Racers have to lap a track 3 times instead of the 5 before, throwing items at each other to snatch the first place. But it's in 3D this time, and it really feels that way. The controls are a minor critique I have, however, moving in a 3D space is a bit different than how it was on the Super Nintendo. On 150cc, if you turn one way, then immediately the other way you'll spin out. I'm not a big fan of that. With the Nintendo 64's controller having a pretty weak thumbstick, the game controls fine, it's just a bit flawed. Now, let's just talk about how expressive this game is. The music is really good. From the happy beats of the raceway tracks to the dark and ominous feels of the castle. Everything sounds great. Also, the character sound bites are awesome. In Mario Kart nowadays, everyone sounds kind of depressed, but here, every character sounds excited to be here. Also a small thing, but if you jump or hit a wall or use a mushroom, comic book style letters appear, which is just really charming. Now, let's talk about the items, because they're a lot more interesting this time around. First, we have the fake item box, which is an item that looks like a real item box, but if you hit it, you'll explode in the air. The boo is an item that makes you invisible, and you can steal an item from somebody. And lastly, the blue shell is like a red shell, but it targets first place. And the rest of the new items are pretty much just variations of old items, like triple red shells and green shells, the super mushroom, which is a million mushrooms in one, and the banana bunch, where you get 5 bananas. All the other items are here besides the feather, which was removed. It makes sense why they took it out. The tracks in this game really weren't made for the feather mines. One of the big complaints is with the red shells, because most of the time when you use them, they just instantly hit a wall, not in a player, which was definitely an issue with the hardware. The homing technology wasn't quite there yet, but other than that, the items are great in this game, and complements the racing very well. The computers in this game still have the rubber banding issue. If you don't know what that is, it's pretty much where if you're far ahead than the other racers, they'll get a speed boost to catch up with you to make the races more interesting. In this game, it's really not that big of an issue. It's actually quite balanced here, unlike Super Mario Kart. Let's move on to the tracks. There are a few fan favorites that originate from this game, but only a few. A lot of them feel just a bit, off. I can't really explain it. None of the tracks have spectators, all of the stands are empty, and it makes the tracks almost feel abandoned in a way. I know the music adds a lot to the immersion, but I don't know, it feels pretty creepy. And the tracks being extremely long does not help. Every track in this game is 3 laps, like I said before, but over half the tracks should have just been 2 laps. A lot of them take over 4 minutes, heck, Rainbow Road takes a whole 6 minutes to complete, making it the longest Mario Kart track ever. This was one of the earliest Mario Karts ever, so it's understandable why the tracks are so long, but there really wasn't any prior games to base it off of, so it makes sense why Wario Coliseum from Double Dash is only 2 laps, while Wario Stadium from Mario Kart 64 is 3. But let's actually get into the tracks, starting with Luigi Raceway. That's right, all circuit tracks in this game are called raceways, and this one isn't the worst thing ever. The long straightaway is kind of boring, and the tunnel about halfway through is pretty lit. Pun not intended. Overall, it's just meant to be your basic circuit track, but the thing I don't really like are these turns. They're angled, so drifting makes the camera go crazy, and I'm not a fan. Moo Moo Farm, another simple circle. There are these moles you have to avoid. On time trials mode, this track is the only track in the entire series to have a random element, in this case the moles. The moles themselves make for really good obstacles because they're only in the corners of the map, so you either go around them losing time but you know you're safe, or you try risking it and cutting through, saving time. But when you get hit by a mole, you lose a ton of time. Just the whole dynamic is really interesting, but aesthetically, this is really bland track. Like, the cows don't even have animations, like what's up with that? Koopa Troopa Beach is the 3rd track, and it's the first somewhat okay one. The track has you drive around an island. Again, it's pretty bland aesthetically. It has boost ramps that lead you into a secret cave behind a waterfall. There's this boost ramp here around the end of the track that is a total trap. If you see it, just run. There's also crab obstacles to avoid, and overall a pretty big step above the other two, but still not a track I would go out of my way to play. Calamar Desert is the first desert track in the series, and aesthetically it's bland. Honestly, that could be said for basically every track in this game, besides maybe Wario Raceway and Rainbow Road. The skybox and other visuals are just really barren, and there's not much else to see. Even the layout's just 2 very large circles, so why do I love it so much? Well, it's because of that damn train. It is a nuisance because it goes right over the track, so it's a big no-no. Which really makes a fun dynamic where you have to race to beat the train. It's really quite fun, and I miss when Mario Kart games had such rich gimmicks like this one. Next up, we have Toad's Turnpike, a highway course that is what a highway course is supposed to be. Fast driving cars with actual consequences if you get hit. The Mario Kart 8 version completely ruins everything about this great course, but at least it can't hurt us here. Also, I know how aesthetically I said tracks in this game aren't so great, but here I love the aesthetic. The track takes place at dusk or dawn, which is a great environment. Also, tightly narrowing, avoiding traffic is just one of the most satisfying things you can do in this game. It's just great. Frape Snowland. Now, this is a frustrating one for me. It's not a very great snow track. Now, let me first say something about the drifting controls, because I don't really like them. They just feel too slippery and not really worth doing all the time. Now, you do get a speed boost from them, but there's no animation from it, so I really don't feel much from drifting. This course has turns that you should really learn drifting if you want to navigate. This course is very thin with snow on either side, so you can go off the path, just not very far before Lucky 2 picks you up. All of that is fine, but then these snowmen are just so annoying. Hitting them sends you flying into the air, but the controls make avoiding these guys just annoying. I feel the controls are too touchy, and I turn too hard when I don't want to, but when I want to move quickly, I can't turn fast enough. It's weird, but I feel like this track is one of the worst examples of it. There'll be a much better snow track later on, so I don't understand why this course exists. Choco Mountain is a chocolate-themed track, or at least it's trying to be. It just kind of looks like crap. And there's like this white fog over the track, making for a very boring aesthetic. There is kind of a cool boulder section at the end, which is cool, I guess, but the biggest issue I have with this course is the end with the spin-out mechanic. For whatever reason, in this game, if your cart is airborne and you hit a wall, you spin out. And for the ending bit, it's really annoying. Mario Kart DS did this track much better, and that's only because the spin-out mechanic didn't exist in that game. Mario Raceway is a slightly harder version of Luigi Raceway, and there's a bit more going on. There's like a giant pipe near the end, which is really cool, but other than that, I'm not jumping out of my seat every time this track pops up. Wario Stadium. Most love this track, but I'm not a fan. For stuff I like, the sports stadium aesthetic's actually really cool. Around the end, there's a jump you have to make, and if you miss it, you fall back to the middle of the track, losing like 45 seconds. It's one of those things where it's so dumb I kind of like it, except for when I lose because of it. And I like how Wario's head is copy and pasted all around the side wall. It was obviously done because of hardware limitations, but it's totally something Wario would do. But those are really the only praises I can give it. This course is just way too long. It never ends. It takes like 5 minutes to finish. A lot of courses in this game are long, and that wouldn't be much of a problem if they were actually interesting, but this course just has a lot of bumps, and that's about it. Also, this is the only Nintendo 64 track to never been brought back as a retro, which I thought I'd just say that. Sherbetland, the better version of Frape Snowlands. You have a Moo Moo Farm type dynamic in terms of freezing water. It's fun to jump the gaps, but go too far and risk falling in. Other than that, the penguins are pretty cool. Wario Raceway. If Luigi Raceway was the beginner track and Mario Raceway was the intermediate track, then Royal Raceway is definitely the hard track. Aesthetically, the pink sky and confetti are really cool. You have this giant ramp with a huge jump halfway through, but the best part of this course is the Easter egg where if you turn right here, you can go to the same castle grounds as Mario 64. It's really pointless because it's the complete opposite direction of the course. Like, they could have had it where you went through the castle grounds as some sort of shortcut or something. Either way though, it's a cool touch and detail that they got rid of in the Mario Kart 8 version for some odd reason. And last up for the Star Cup, we have Bowser's Castle. I know this version doesn't have a giant Bowser statue or giant fire lava obstacles or anything, but I think what makes this track so great is the atmosphere. The dark tunnels with 90-degree turns adds to the uncanny atmosphere. The random gardens surrounded by stone walls and a lava sea is really weird, but I think it works in a good, weird kind of way. But the creepiest thing is the start of the track with a singular thwomp in a cage, named Marty by the community. Just sits there, like, what did he do? Mix that in with the eerie choir for a theme and you get an unsettling experience. This Bowser's Castle is nothing special, but something about the atmosphere makes it my favorite Bowser's Castle in the series. DK Jungle, the first jungle course in the series. There's a cool ramp at the start and a cool cave at the end, and if you go into the off-road, boulders get thrown at you by natives. Yoshi Valley. This is one I hated originally, but I've grown to like. This is probably the most gimmicky course in the whole series, that gimmick being that there are many paths to take, and everybody's position is hidden until the very end. Now, certain paths are faster than others, but I still like exploring this course. You can take a different path all 3 laps, so I find myself never getting bored of this one. Also, if you fall, it takes 1,000 years to get back up. Banshee Boardwalk. Just imagine a slightly worse Bowser's Castle. This is a long and narrow boardwalk with boos stalking you from every turn. There's an abandoned house section near the end, which is the only interesting thing about this course. It sounds cool in concept, but it kind of just lacks being memorable. And lastly, we have Rainbow Road. For the good, this is a beautiful track. The road is vibrant and the colors pop. And you also have fireworks in the background of all the characters, and my gosh, the music. It is the best track theme ever in a Mario Kart game. Maybe besides Shroom Ridge and the Booster Course Pass, the music just really makes you feel like you're at the end. But the track just never ends. It takes 6 freaking minutes to finish the course, which is absurd. Remember in Super Mario Kart where Rainbow Road was a challenge because of the lack of guardrails? Well, imagine that course, but with the guardrails along the whole time. This course is stupid easy, which is not something you want for the grand finale course. There are chain chomps as obstacles, but they are easy to avoid. So we're left with a beautiful course with really good music that's kind of boring. So, I don't know, cool. But those are only the racing tracks. What about the battle mode? Battle mode got a huge upgrade from its predecessor. Now you can play it with 4 players. Battle mode is still chaos, but in a good way. Balloon battle is still the only game mode, but that's really all you need. If you're playing with 3 or 4 players and one person dies, they turn into a literal bomb to chase down other players. Like, you really can't top this. For the maps, Big Donut is one burnt donut. It's just a circle, and it's just fun trying to cut other people off, but it's really nothing special. Same thing with Skyscraper, except now you got 4 junction points to get into the center, so there's a bit more variety there, but still. Double Deck is a weird one. Aesthetically, I've never been able to really know what it's supposed to be. It's just made up of generic textures and simple blocks, like I can make it in Blender in an hour. And last but not least, the messiah of all battle course tracks, Block Fort. What hasn't been said about Block Fort? It is a masterpiece, it's just beautiful. And that's Mario Kart 64. Overall, it's a big step up from Super Mario Kart. And it's a very memorable entry in the series. If the jump from this game from the last game looks so good, I can't imagine what the next game is going to look like. Oh yeah, that's right. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.